Well, hello my yarny friends. How are you guys doing? It's been, what, a little over a week since the last video. So today what I want to do is just show you more of the squares that I have made, that I've been working on since the last time I saw you. My little process is, when I sit down with the skein of yarn, I do 2 patchwork squares, 2 granny squares, and then 2 corner to corner squares, and then I move on to the next color, unless I'm working on a color that I did before and I'm just trying to finish up the ball of yarn. Like this color right here, it's that scratchy yarn that I have from Craftsmart that was sold at Michael's years ago. They called this color Sangria, and here's the label from Craftsmart. There we go. Had to turn my screen down. All right, there we go. So I finished out this skein of yarn, and I got another patchwork square out of it, and I got 2 corner to corner squares. It looks so bright in the camera. And then all I have left over is just this little bit right here. So that color is all done, and I won't get any more squares out of that. I need a table today. So how are you guys doing? Are you making squares, or are you working on other projects? Let's see. These are not in order that I made them. They're just how I took them off my shelf. My next color is from Red Heart Super Saver. I think it's called Pink Camo. Yeah, Pink Camo. And I'm not done working with the skein yet. I can get a few more squares out of that. I've done 2 patchwork squares. I'm surprised. I like this the 2 shades of pink with the browns and the greens. I like this. I think this came out really pretty. So 2 patchwork squares. You can see this square is a little smaller than the other one. My tension must have been off that day. And let's see, I did 2 granny squares, traditional granny squares. And then 2 corner to corner squares. So that's my process. 2 patchwork, 2 granny, 2 corner to corner. And then I sit it all off to the side until I'm in the mood to work with this color again. Because you know how, like, when you're reading books, people will say, I'm a mood reader? Well, it turns out I crochet with certain colors based on my mood. So would that be a mood crocheter? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I use Painted Desert from Red Heart Super Saver. Okay, it's called Painted Desert. It's this, I see, brown, some red, blue, and some green. I mean, to look at it, it seems okay in the ball of yarn, right? But when you work it up in a square, I mean, it looks muddy almost. Like the colors just looks like a, but I like it though. So 2 patchwork squares. I don't know where I was going with that thought. I completely lost my train of thought. 2 granny squares. And I'll tell you why I keep losing my train of thought. My thinking's a little fuzzy today. And 2 corner to corner squares. So I have this ball left. I can get at least, what, another 2 patchwork squares out of that. And I also have this little bit. Okay, and let's see. Some Big Twist value from Joann's. The color is called Bumbleberry. Now there's a word, Bumbleberry. So shades of purple and fuchsia. They don't make this color anymore. I did check their website to see what color of variegateds that they have. They don't make that color anymore. So there's my 2 patchwork squares. 2 granny squares. And my 2 corner to corner squares. Now we're going to count all these up when I'm done showing you all the colors that I've worked with, so I can add to my count for squares. Okay, all right, let me get the next batch. Okay, so it turns out I have an infection here in my jaw because of a tooth that I had root canal done on years ago. So there's no roots in there, but I got, probably from food, bacteria that wound up in there, and it has created an infection. I saw an oral surgeon yesterday because it needs to come out, but I need to take antibiotics first to get rid of the infection and then have what's left of that tooth extracted. So sometimes when I'm talking, I lose my train of thought. I get a little fuzzy in the head, and it's only because I'm fighting off an infection. But there was a mix-up at the office. I was at the office yesterday, and they were supposed to send in a prescription, but it was my first time at the office, and I realized they don't have my pharmacy information, and they didn't print the prescription out like the old school way. So I had to call them today, and I'm waiting for a call back. So if you hear my phone, that'll be that. So it, because my body's fighting off an infection and I didn't know, it's probably been in there for months. Sometimes I get a little fuzzy and I forget what I'm doing. All right, so I had this color Lagoon from Red Heart Super Saver, and I was trying to use up the rest of the skein, and I got 2 more patchwork squares out of it because I already did this. I think I showed you this color in the last video, and then I got a granny square. So I have to pull out the other squares to see what I have to decide what I'm going to do with this last little bit. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm actually organizing the squares that I've already done, because like when I'm done making them, I just sit them on the shelf, and then I grab the next color, and then when I'm done that, I just sit them on the shelf, and I wait till I do the video for you guys to actually go back and put them in piles and count them up and organize them. I'm thinking I'm going to need a bin or a box to put them all in. All right, so I dug into my mom's stash of yarn that she sent up to me, and this is called Big Twist Sincerely. Joann's used to have a brand of yarn years and years and years ago called Pearl Essence Sincerely, and then they rebranded it as Big Twist Sincerely, and then they got rid of Sincerely altogether. It's more of a, I mean, it's not truly variegated because the white runs through all of it with the speckles of the green and the blue and the red and the yellow. I really like this look. And the color is called Cupcake Confetti. Yeah? So I made some squares out of this. And this yarn, it's pretty soft. I don't know why Joann's discontinued their Sincerely line, because it's pretty soft. And I enjoy it. I actually have some of their older stuff from when they were still actively making it. I have some of it on my shelf, and I do enjoy it. It's like a squishy kind of yarn, you know? So then I've got 2 granny squares. Yeah? Pretty, right? And then 2 corner to corner squares. That one kind of looks like a jumbled mess, right? But I don't know. Here, let's stretch it out a little bit. I don't know. It's there. Sometimes the pattern gets lost depending on the colors that you use, you know. All right, and then I did pink tones from Red Heart Super Saver. It's called Pink Tones, and they have purple tones. This is what I've got left, so I know I can get a few more patchwork squares out of that. But I do have 2 patchwork squares to start with. And then 2 granny squares. I think the pink tones lent itself really well to the granny square. I think so. And then 2 corner to corner squares, which I think the corner to corner squares in this color came out really good. Aren't they? They're pretty. So along with the pink tones that Red Heart made, they also made one called Purple Tones. So let's do that one next. So this is what the purple tones looks like, and this is all that I have left. There we go. Purple. Yeah, I know the camera wants to keep focusing on my face. Gonna move it out of the way. All right, there's the granny square. And then 2 corner to corner squares. And they have one in a green color that is like the pink tones and the purple tones, but they called it desert camo. Okay, but it just kind of reminds me of the pink tones and the purple tones. Because I would call this green tones, but I guess it's because it's got some beige in there. It kind of looks a little bit like sand, I guess. But I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not usually a big fan of green yarn, unless it's electric lime green. Lime green's my favorite, but other shades of green I'm usually not a big fan of. But I like the way this one turned out. There's the patchwork, the 2 granny squares, and the 2 corner to corner squares. Next, I have some vintage red heart, and it's called Shaded Browns, and this stuff is going back quite a few years. It's a little thicker than current day red heart, so it's kind of like on the thick end of a number 4 medium weight, and I don't know why, and it is a bit scratchy. All right, because I took this and I put some of it in the box that I sold and in the box that I gave away. I didn't have a lot left to work with. So far all I've got is 2 patchwork squares, which I love this. There's a color similar to this in the blanket that I already made. I got 1 granny square and 1 corner to corner square. I don't think this is going to be enough to give me another granny square and another corner to corner. So what I would like to do is just use the rest of this to make patchwork squares. All right, and then this one is another vintage one from Red Heart, and it's called Shaded Dusk, and it's these shades of blue. Yeah, I know, I didn't roll it up into a ball yet. I get lazy sometimes. I just don't have it in me to wrap it up all nice and neat, and then it flops around and then it gets knotted. Then I spend more time unknotting it and rolling it up when I should just roll it up to begin with. I know. So this is what the Shaded Dusk looks like, and this is another vintage color. This is a color that when they make it, like in the 80s, they discontinued it and then they brought it back, and then they discontinued it and then they brought it back. And then I think this last skein I have is from either the late 90s or the early 2000s. But you know, yarn companies are always doing that to us, right? And 2 granny squares. And then 2 corner to corner squares, which I love the way the color worked up in the corner to corner squares. I actually like the Shaded Dusk altogether. I like the darker shade of blue going into like a slate blue into the, because it's not pastel and it's not overly dark like a navy blue. Yeah, I like the way the colors worked up in that. And then this one, this one makes me smile when I work with it. It is the Coral Fizz that was manufactured in 1992. You can tell right here on the label when it says 92, that means 1992. They don't do this to their labels anymore. And then they put the words on the front. It says Red Heart 4-ply knit and crochet yarn. And it says 100% virgin acrylic fiber. And they don't use those words anymore. It says moth-proof, non-allergenic, color-fast, shrink-proof. So even the label is oh so very vintage. Okay, they don't use these words anymore. But this Coral Fizz, the greens and the peaches and the whites, this was such a blast working with this. So I did have a second skein that I did break up and put in the 2 boxes that I had, but this one I got to keep all to myself, and I'm glad I did, because I made 3 patchwork squares. Oh wow, I was feeling fancy that day. I was on a roll. So I did 3 squares. 1, 2, and 3. See these colors? Oh my, they're just killing me. I love them so much. And then I did 2 granny squares, which, you know, this so totally says classic crochet, you know. And then the corner to corner squares. Oh my goodness, they're killing me. I love this. Actually, I think I need a little serotonin boost today, so maybe I will sit and work with this when I'm done talking to you guys, because I could use a little boost today. But yeah, this, I love it. I love the color. Okay, so some of the yarn from my mom's stash. It is this stuff from Hobby Lobby called Yarn Bee Soft Secret. It's kind of like Karen Simply Soft. It's been sitting on my shelf since I made my last batch of patchwork squares, and I wanted to make some more. So I made 1 more patchwork square, and then I wanted to see how it worked up in the granny square, which I'm using the same size hook, but because this yarn, even though it's a number 4 medium, it's kind of on the light side. So this granny square came up a bit smaller than my other granny squares. And same with the corner to corner square. So depending on how big the size difference is, I might just frog these and not use them in the blankets. I'll just make more patchwork squares out of them, because the patchwork squares came out just fine. But for some reason, these 2 came out a bit smaller, and I don't want to go up a hook size, because I think that would make it too loose. So yeah, I'm undecided on what I want to do with these, because I was just testing it out to see how this yarn would work up as a corner to corner square and a granny square. So this was an experiment. Now, is it a failed experiment? Not quite, because it let me know that the yarn is too satiny and it's working up too small. So I think that was a success. I would think so. Okay, my next favorite color in this batch of everything that I've done, although I like them all. The pink camo came out nice, the shaded dusk with the blues, but the coral fizz and this other vintage one called Holly and Ivy from Red Heart, this Christmas variegated that they had, this is so much fun. So they still had a date stamp on there, so 2007, so that still puts it at 15 years old. So not from the 80s and the 90s, but you know, up there. I did 3 patchwork squares out of it. Oh my goodness, I love this so much. It definitely, because color wise, it definitely has a vintage feel to it. I love this. So I did 3 patchwork squares, because I know that I want more patchwork squares out of it than I want granny squares or corner to corner. So 2 granny squares. I get that yarn tail out of the way. Okay, my granny squares haven't been blocked yet, so they keep, when I sit them down, they keep rolling up. And then 2 corner to corner squares. Oh my god, it's so cute, isn't it? Oh, I love it. Ha, sorry, I had to go take a little break and go get something to drink. I need to be hydrated, right? All the talking that I do. So I wanted to show you that my plan for the other squares that I'm making, the granny squares and the corner to corner squares. When I make my patchwork squares, when I put them together in a blanket, I actually crochet them together. I will take the two squares. This is the front, this is the back, and this is the back of the next one. So I put them together, back to back. I find the end or the beginning of row 1, which is a chain 2. I find the end of row 1 on the other one, which is a half double crochet. And I will insert my hook and make a single crochet. And then the next one will be the end of row 2, which is a half double, and the beginning of row 2, which is a chain 2. So so when these squares are put together, they're right up against each other. Okay. I wanted to do something a little different for the granny squares. The whole edging them in black, so they have that definite vintage vibe to them from the 60s and the 70s, when our grandmothers were literally using scraps of yarn to make granny squares, and they usually edged them in black or brown. Brown is also a very popular color with the granny square blankets from way back in the day. So I grabbed 2 random colors off of my shelf of my granny squares, and I actually went out and bought some black from Joann's. It's their store brand called Big Twist Value, and I put black edging on 2 of my traditional granny squares. Okay, sit there. I did the the Craft Smart in the color Sangria. I did 2 rows of single crochet. I tried it with just the one round of single crochet, and it felt like it wasn't quite enough. So I did a second round. So it is 2 rounds of single crochet with 3 single crochets in each corner. With this color Sangria, I think it came out perfect. Yeah, and then I did this color called Holland. It's supposed to be like tulips. So then when I go to put the granny squares together, I will still single crochet them together with black, because I wanted to have a lot of black in between each square. I will single crochet them together with the black, so then they will look like this. Yeah, so that is my plan for my granny squares. So as I go along from now until October, right? Because I'm going to make as many variegated squares as I can from March to October, because I want to use up all the variegated that I had in my stash. And I'm just going to keep making patchwork squares, granny squares, and corner to corner squares until all the variegated is done. And then I will stitch them all together into blankets. So I think that's going to look pretty good. It's definitely going to have a feel to it. It's definitely going to have a vibe to it. All right. So that is what I'm doing with the traditional granny squares. The corner to corner, I'm using okay, one of my favorite colors in yarn and crochet is the soft whites. It's called soft white, off-white, antique white, creamy white. I normally call it creamy white myself. This one is called Ivory, and it's from Big Twist, again from Joann's, but it is the creamy white and is one of my favorite colors to work with. So my plan is to use this with the corner to corner squares. So I made up a few last night before, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate. I am going to crochet them together, but I'm not sure of my exact method of joining them. I will have one variegated color and then one creamy color, right? And then variegated on the other side of the creamy. Okay, so it will alternate like this. So it'll, what's the one lady, Sandra from Cherry Heart. She did a Battenberg blanket. If I can find, hopefully I can put the link down in the description box. She made a blanket where she did granny squares. She did the solid granny square, and she did one in a creamy color, and then she did one in variegated, one in the creamy, one in the variegated, and then she alternated her rows, and her blanket came out absolutely beautiful, and I love it. But she used lighter weight yarn. I think she used could have been fingering weight or sport weight in all those little mini hanks, and her blanket came out beautiful. So it's kind of like that, but I already have a blanket that's similar. I had to dig that one out. So that is what my plan is. And because what you would do is you would do the solid, and then, Anna, do you understand? Should I lay them out? No, you guys get it, right? I know this square came out smaller than this one. Same hook size, same weight yarn, but this Red Heart Classic in the berry color, it worked up so thick that I would actually have to block these to stretch these out just a little bit, but they'll stretch anyway. Like when I do put them together, they'll stretch a little bit when I go to do that, and then when I wash them, it'll all work out in the end. I'll explain this better in the next video when I start taking some antibiotics for this infection I got going on, and I can think a little bit better, because as you can see, my face is a bit puffy, you know, so I'm still waiting for the doctor's office to call me back so they can send in the prescription. All right, so that is my plan. For the corner to corner squares, I'm going to alternate them with creamy white, and then my traditional granny squares, I'm going to edge them in black and then stitch them together with black. My patchwork squares, they are going to be crocheted together with a single crochet, and I will show you better than holding it up of how I'm going to stitch it together, but it's going to be a couple months from now, because right now I'm just in the process of making the squares. I'm not too concerned about joining. Do I think about the joining that I want to do? Yes, I'm always working out the details in my head, but I don't actually have to worry about it for a couple of months. So like, you people are asking me in the comments how I plan on putting them all together. Well, crocheting them together is the easiest thing for me, and I like the look of crocheting squares together with a single crochet. I like the ridge and the texture that it puts on the top of the blanket. I like how closely it gets the squares together. So that's always my favorite method. There are so many other methods of joining squares. You can use your little darning needle and yarn and do a whip stitch and put them together. You can do an invisible join, which sometimes I still cannot wrap my head around how these ladies get them right up together and you can't see the yarn that's joining them. There's the mattress seam. There is slip stitching them. There are so many ways to put squares together, and we all have our own preferences, but for me it is crocheting with a single crochet. That is my preference for putting squares together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you off for a minute, and I'm going to grab all my squares, count them up, and I have a piece of paper here with my other squares where I'm keeping a running total of what I've got going on here. Okay, so I'm going to do that real quick, and I'll come back and I'll tell you how many I've made in the last week, and then add that to my totals and tell you how many I've got all together. Okay, so I will be right back. Did you guys see that clip of Arlo sleeping on the pillow on the back of the couch in front of the yarn? Because he's keeping me company. Okay, so if I'm counting right, and I hope that I am, I have 28 new patchwork squares. 28. In a little more than a week, it's been what, 9 or 10 days since I've seen you guys? 28 squares for patchwork. 23 for the traditional granny square. Wow, look at all that yarny goodness. And then 24 for the corner to corner squares. Oh my God, this is such a beautiful stack of squares. You can see the colors so much better on the corner to corner stack than you can on the others. Oh, so beautiful. So I add 28 and 23 and 24 to my other totals, and I've got 179 patchwork squares. 47 traditional granny squares and 38 corner to corner squares. Yeah, if my math is right. So my patchwork squares are still 3 1/4 by 3 1/2 inches. My granny squares with 3 rounds of granny and 1 round of single crochet. I'm gonna measure that right now. I've got, let's see, a little more than 4 1/2 inches, but not quite 4 3/4. Yeah, okay. So, just a smidge bigger than 4 1/2 inches for my traditional granny squares. And then when I put the round of black on there, so remember I put 2 rounds of single crochet in black, that brings the size up to 5 1/4. So let's see, a little more than 4 1/2, 5 1/4. All right, let's see what my corner to corner squares are looking like. As soon as I get done dropping things. Okay, let's see. 4 3/4. Okay, so my corner to corner squares are 4 3/4, right on the mark. Is there a size difference between all of my squares? Yes, between one yarn company to the next, and depending on the day, if my hands are really tight, so my tension is tight, or if I'm feeling nice and relaxed and my stitches are loose. If the size difference is, I don't know, maybe like in sewing where you've got a 1/4 seam of an allowance, you know, for your seams, you got a 1/4 of an inch. As long as my squares are all within a 1/4 of an inch of each other with their measurements, I'm fine with that, because once you stitch them all together and you wash it and then you spread it out on the floor and you kind of, kind of brush it out into shape, the size difference will not matter. Okay, so what did I say? A little more than 4 1/2 for the granny squares, for the traditional granny squares, and then 5 1/4 with the border on them. And then my corner to corners are coming out at 4 3/4. I know that's a lot of information in one video. I know that. But that's what crocheting is, right? It's a lot of information. So how many patchwork squares do I need to make a blanket? I don't know, because my numbers were wrong with my math the last time around. I will do a video where I will take the squares that I have and lay them out on a king size bed, because my bed's king size. I'll lay them out on a king size bed and then figure out how many for the king size. I have a full size bed in the house. I'll do the same thing there. And I have a twin size bed. So I don't have a queen. So I will get measurements for the beds, for the patchwork squares, for the granny squares, for the corner to corner squares. I also know that some of you would like to see me crochet a granny square and see me crochet a corner to corner square. They won't be full-on tutorial videos, because you will need to know a little bit about crochet and what to do, so you can just watch me do it and then you know how to do it. Okay, it won't be like a full-on tutorial. I'm not set up to do full-on tutorials yet, just a little bit of how I do things. That's what we're gonna call it, is how Jenny does things. Okay, so I know you would like to sit with me and crochet a granny square and see how I do it, and how I do a corner to corner square. And the video's coming, and measurements, so we know how many squares we need, because for me this is a 6-month project, because I have a lot of variegated yarn and you need a lot of squares to put a blanket together. I mean, for the little For my first original Patchwork Squares blanket, it's 132 squares, and you don't think it's a lot, but when you spread them out on your floor to stitch them together, it's a lot of squares. So, I mean, I have enough squares right now to make another small lap size, throw size blanket, but I want to make one for a double bed. I would love to see a lot of squares together on a double or full size bed. So that is my plan, but your plans can be different, and it's okay, because that's the beauty of working squares. You can make it as big or as small as you want. As long as I can give you a guideline with numbers, like you need 20 squares across and 18 squares up, and then do the math on that, then I'll get to it. It's just I'm not in a rush because I've got 6 months to do this. So we've got plenty of time for the videos. Just take a deep breath. In and out. Just take a deep breath. The videos will come. So I actually have to film some of these videos in advance, because I did make an appointment for March 21st. I'm going to be having a lot of dental work done. I've always had bad teeth. It doesn't matter how much I brush or floss. My teeth are they're soft, and they're prone to decay and cavities and infections. It's just my lot in life. So I'm going to be having a lot of dental work done. So that means I won't be able to sit here and talk to you guys for a while. I'm hoping it's not too long. So I'm hoping to have some videos all made before the 21st rolls around. So these videos just might be simple. That just might be about the squares that I'm making. So just hang in there while I get all this straightened out and get rid of this infection I got going on, because that turns out that's why I haven't been feeling well. Like, I have days where I feel perfectly fine, and then days where I'm really tired, and it turns out my body's been fighting off an infection here. So good for my body for knowing, but me, I was too dumb to think anything about it. I just, you just don't pay attention to certain things, And this year, it's not even just about my mental health this year, because my mental health has been really good. I put in a lot of work in the last 20 years to get to where I am today. While therapy always sounds like a good idea, I'm kind of like a do-it-yourself kind of person. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of energy to get to where I am with my mental health, and I'm in a good spot. But physically, I have let a lot of things slide. Okay, so let's get the infection cleared up first and take care of my teeth, and then we'll start getting healthier. This is my year for taking care of myself, for putting myself first. And you ladies know it is so hard when you are married, when you have kids, or whatever you do for a living. There's plenty of people out there who are nurses. They do that for a living, but they also kind of take that role on at home as the carer. We take care of everybody else, and we don't take care of ourselves. You have to take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, how are you supposed to take care of anybody else? So here is your public service announcement. Whatever you have put off at the doctor's office, go do it. Even if it's just one little thing, just go take care of one thing so you are better for yourself and then for other people, okay? Learn to put yourself first. It's okay. It's not a selfish thing. Put yourself first. And I'm sorry, this is at the end of my video. It's just, that's where I'm at in my life right now. I'm crocheting during the day when I'm not doing household chores. I'm still in a little bit of a reading slump. I have picked up 2 books, okay? I'm trying to read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. It's about 2 people who create a video game, so it was kind of like Ready Player One, but I really enjoyed Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, because it was written by somebody closer to my age who grew up with the video games and stuff in the 70s when video games became a thing, the home consoles with the Atari. Okay, so Ready Player One was more my speed. I knew most of the references in there. This one's a little slow to get into. So if you guys have read it, let me know, because I'm only, chapter 1 was from the guy's point of view, chapter 2 was from the girl's point of view. So I'm at the end of chapter 2 and I haven't quite started chapter 3. I can't quite get into it yet. But I also picked this up at my local thrift store the other day, and it's called Book Scavenger by Jennifer Chambliss Burtman. Book Scavenger, where life is a game and books are the token. tokens. So this is middle grade, and the two main characters are like 11, 12 years old, and they go on a scavenger hunt with books. And I'm loving it. I made it through the prologue, the first chapter, the second chapter, third chapter, because I was reading it in the dentist office yesterday. Yeah, all right, I made it up to chapter 5. I'm at the beginning of chapter 6. I'm enjoying it, but I am having a very hard time focusing on it because of my health issues. So that's where I'm at in life right now. So how are you guys doing? Everybody's good, right? If you're not good, go ahead and reach out. Let me know. Email grannysquarepeg@gmail.com and grannysquarepeg at Instagram and grannysquarepeg at Etsy and grannysquarepeg on YouTube. Am I on Facebook? Yes, but let's not talk about Facebook. All right, so I hope you guys are well. Don't forget to take care of yourselves. And I am now up to 5,100 subscribers, and you guys are awesome. I can't do what I do unless you're there to watch what I do. So thank you so much for being here, for liking my videos, for watching my videos, for commenting on my videos. I really do think we are building ourselves a nice little community down in the comment section. So thank you guys so much. I love you all very, very much, and keep being awesome. And I will see you hopefully in a couple days. All right. Bye.